I've been talking to a very good friend. Her name is Natalia. Natalia has been a friend of mine for 20-some years. A beautiful, beautiful lady. And she texted me and she said, "Would you be praying for me?" She says, "My daddy has COVID. He's 95. She texted me a day after that and she says, "Marty, I want you to pray for me because I've got it. And I've gone into the hospital." Natalia was in the hospital 3 different times. Just a floor below her daddy. I texted her last night. I said, I need you to know, Natalia, that I am praying for you and I love you and my church loves you, but please know that I truly, truly am praying for you. This morning I texted her and I said, "How are you feeling?" She says, "I lost Daddy at 4:15 this morning." She says, "But the nurses were so good because I was in another room and they allowed me and they hooked it up to where I could say goodbye. Amen. And I could say, 'I love you, Daddy.'" And she was at peace. Tears broke my eyes because I thought, how many of those stories have been going on since March? How many of those situations in which we can't say "I love you" or we can't interact and we can't be able to send our love for somebody? And we've taken love for granted. We just truly have. You don't know how much you love somebody till they're gone. And it's always the thing as a funeral director is we sit and we listen to people say, "If only I had had one more day." I could share with you right now, if you had had one more day, you wouldn't have done it and it wouldn't have been enough. Love. Joe and I were with Ned this week on Wednesday night. And we went to the 1 Corinthians, the love chapter, 13. And it blew me away again, Joe. We're sitting there and we're talking about what the NIV says. We're talking about what English says. And we're talking about what the King James says. And if you don't get them together, you lose the whole understanding of what God is trying to tell us, Paul is trying to tell us about love. You have heard me talk about this before. I just feel like now, especially with this week, with what we've been going through and the challenges of life that we have, I can tell you, I've never been in this position before. I think you probably haven't been in this situation before, and all of the garbage of the outside comes inside. Everybody is scared to death. Every time you sneeze, every time you cough, every time somebody's sick, you better get a COVID test. We're just walking on pins and needles, and the fear is overcoming any love that we have. I want to share with you today about the love that Natalia taught me this morning. It is amazing to me how God changes the sermon. You have it all planned, Ken. You've done it before. You have it all planned and you have it all laid out. And then God changes it. I don't know if you've ever been in it, but it's an amazing thing. It's kind of scary. Because you don't know if your mouth's going to say what needs to be said, and you don't want to screw it up, but it's God's words. We're going to go to 1 Corinthians again. Chapter 13. And I just want, we preached on it a few weeks ago. Forgive me, but I'm going a different direction with this because this is what God told me to do. So, if you don't like it, you talk to Him. If I speak in tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have not faith that can move a mountain, but have not love, listen to me, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. This is pretty amazing to me. I always get upset when I hear pastors all the time talking about love, not talking about forgiveness, but talking about love, and not talking about consequences, not talking about the consequences of not following Jesus. But in many words, we do need to speak about love, because love is not what we continually hear, even from the pulpit, but let alone from other people. If I was to do anything in life differently, or if I had had another career to go through, I would have been a psychologist. Yeah, I know, that freaks you out, doesn't it, Joe? That way I could figure out why my mind is the way it is. But one of the things that I found, I really, Andy, I went to LaRue Carter when I was 30 years old, and I sat and I interacted with patients, and I got along better with people with mental disorders than I do the people who are, quote, normal. That kind of scared me a little bit. Maybe I need more lithium. I don't know. Here is a quote from a secular psychiatrist that I want to share with you, from Dr. Carl Mellinger. He says this: love is the medicine for the sickness of the world. It cures those that give it and those that receive it. No. See, he may not even understand it. But I'm thinking he's getting an idea of just how powerful the love, not our defined love, but what God's love can do. God's love is more powerful than... We've gotten completely away from what the definition of God's love is. Joe, we talked about it on Wednesday night, and we set the different things up. And what was it the King James? Love, hope, and what? Charity. Charity. That's what the King James Version says. But that's not what the NIV says. And that's not what English, the Message, says. But you got to put them all together. Charity. Kevin, you know what charity is to me? Ring, 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 ring. Ring, 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 ring. Ring, 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 ring. Help the poor. Put your pennies in the bucket. Salvation Army. Ring, 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 ring. And oh, it's such a blessing to see people come by and put a nickel or a dime in. Oh, God bless you, sir. God bless you. Ring, 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 ring. Charity. That is not what the King James Version is talking about, man. Until we get this understanding of how this is metamorphosed into something greater than what we thought it was. You see, charity and love are one and the same. Charity is overbearance and the blessedness of love and being God to somebody else. It's not throwing a nickel in and feeling good about yourself. It's more than that. It's the kind of love that God has done for you and for me. It's the charity to the world. It's the idea that he gave everything for you and for me. And that just blows me away. Because I'll be very honest with you. Let me just share this with you from a human standpoint. You can sit here with a lot of people, and I just tell you, some of you don't deserve it. I certainly do. That's how the world says. I deserve it. But some of these people, they just don't deserve it. The charity of God's love is, shut up. Every one of you deserve it. You don't deserve it, but you can have it. Kevin talked about it this morning in Sunday school. The idea that God loves you. And that's the problem with me, Ken. At 63, I'm going to take every year that I can and hold on to it. I still hold things up, and I find in my heart, and my heart quivers when I try to love something that I don't really necessarily want to love. But you know what? God doesn't do that. The charity, the greatest of these is charity. The greatest of these is God's love. God lets it all go. I love you. Now, all you have to do is to claim it. All you got to do is to claim it. No matter what. We hold things up. We hold grudges. We hold guilt. We hold pain. We hold vengeance. You know what Washington needs right now? The charity. What Washington needs is love. I don't give a rip about your opinion. What I care about is loving you like Jesus would love you. And when we do that, all things happen. The power is amazing. I had a board meeting that I thought this last week was going to be the worst possible challenge. I had everything that could go wrong was going to go wrong. I had it all planned out. I just realized what was going on. And before the meeting ever occurred, all we had to do was to come in and pray. And to ask God to take the situation, because God had already done what he needed to do. And listen to me. The arrogance of a pastor, me, walking out of there saying, "Oh, forgive me, God." Because we all walked out loving each other. Oh my gosh. Take this and take it to D.C. Take this and take it to your home. Take this and put it in your church. Verse 1. Love is greater than any of your basic communication skills. Doesn't matter what kind of speech you write. You can be the most wonderful speech giver in all your life. You can have everything, and my goodness, the effectiveness of Peter Heck is not because he's a great speaker. The effectiveness of Peter Heck is because the love of Jesus is in his speech. It doesn't matter what kind of language you speak. You and I, many of us have been to different countries. And we've had different countries. And you can't communicate, but when you hug and you tell someone they love you or you love them, it breaks down every barrier. If you do something with someone else or you share your love of Jesus with someone else, you don't need to have the same language because you're already speaking the same language. Too many of us work through the idea of communication with noise, a clanging cymbal, a loud bell, being loud and making sure that others see us. You can have the greatest intellect, you can have the greatest education, and you can make the loudest noise. But it has nothing to do with God's love. Matter of fact, what I have found is God's love is pretty silent when you share it. But it expands and spreads like wildfire. Eloquence has nothing to do with it. Being gifted has nothing to do with anything unless you have the love of God. Verse number 2 says this: love is greater than all your spiritual gifts. You can be blessed financially. You can be blessed by doing things. You can be blessed by music. But if you don't have love, it doesn't matter. I've got some really good friends who are just absolute phenomenal musicians, and they've gone to Nashville, and it just nothing happened. Sometimes you just wonder if it's not because we base success on what the world says rather than what God says. You see, you can have the gift of prophecy. You can declare the truth and believe that you know the truth and have that gift. Oh my gosh, the gift of prophecy, knowing full well, declaring the truth, declaring what God's plan is, and fully knowing that. But if you don't have love, it does not matter. You could have all the knowledge in the world. I have a very dear friend who's probably more proficient in the Bible than any person I've ever met. And just because you have a deep understanding of God's Word does not make any difference if you don't use that Word in a loving way. And you can trust God all you want to and have great faith. Faith in God. But if you don't have love, none of this matters. That's the thing about Pastor Tim that I want to share with you a little bit. His love for Jesus is far greater than his love for anything else. You heard him here today. The confidence that he has that the Lord has got this, and it's fully in his authority. And in all honesty, Wendy, we all needed to hear that from him because he witnessed to us. And in chapter 3, Alex, it says, or in verse 3, God's love, and love is more valuable and more important than personal sacrifice. You don't understand what I have done in ministry. I have gone on 5 missions trips. I took 42 teens to Mexico. I don't care. Because if you don't have love, none of that matters. You could be the greatest, quote, Christian that you've ever thought that you were in life. But without love, it doesn't matter. You could die as a martyr for your faith in Jesus Christ. You could die for Jesus Christ. Listen to this, man. Many people have this messianic complex. You could die for Jesus Christ in your faith. But without love, listen to me, it doesn't matter. Without the love of Jesus, What would happen if Wes would come up to me and he says, I have an opportunity here to wipe out homelessness in all of Muncie. And he could actually do it. And he comes to the church and we do it. Wonderful. And we lift him up. We've done something great. It matters not unless we have love. And we do it because of love. You could cure cancer. You could raise people from the dead. But without love, nothing matters. We may give to worthy causes many times for unworthy reasons. We may go on the missional field and become a missionary and die overseas. But none of that matters unless there is love. Do you see what I'm saying here? We have gotten so far away politically, culturally, and understanding what true love is and why Jesus and Paul says, without love, nothing matters. I just want to show you this little multiplication thing that I did. Really doesn't matter a whole lot, but it looks cool. Just want to show this up to you and just say this. 10 times 15, we know what that is. We know what 10 times 15 is. You actually have something. And 1,000,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000,000. And after that, we can just multiply and multiply, which I didn't know. After a trillion, there's a quadrillion. And a quintillion comes after that. That is 1 with 18 zeros. But let me share this with you. 25 quintillion times 0 is still 0. You get it? 1 times 0 is 0. 25 quintillion times 0 is still 0. This was pretty cool for me, Josh. I made this up. And sometimes in my life, I have to put things together. You know, I have to show things, because I have to see things. This made sense to me, you know? Because I can do all of this wonderful stuff. I could even be a decent preacher. I could sing. I could do things. But without love, I'm back to 0. Life without love is 0. You got it? Now, I want to make sure you get this greatly through our heads and help me with it. It is not the love that the culture is telling us that love is. It is not the love on HBO. If they even have HBO, I haven't heard that for so long. It is not an R-rated movie love. It is a sacrificial love that you do inherently in your heart because you can't help to do it because you love Jesus so much. And you don't have to get any stinking credit for it. A little story I want to share with you, and we'll close this out. It's called The Curfew Shall Not Ring Tonight. The story is a 17th century man by the name of Oliver Cromwell was the Lord Protector of England. And this soldier had not done what he had asked him to do and was to be killed, hung by the gallows at midnight when the clock struck 12. And once the clock struck 12, his death was to occur. His wife had gone in and pleaded with the governor and said, "Please, sir, spare my husband." He needs to die, and he shall die when the clock strikes 12. At midnight, everyone was ready, turned to the clock tower, and there was no ring. Everyone waited, and there was no ring. The guards went to the clock tower and found his wife, who had shackled herself to the pendulum. Her arms had been crushed, her hands had been bloodied, her fingers and arms had been broken. The clock never struck 12. She was called before the king. Why have you done this? Because of the love that I have for my husband. The king's heart was turned. He had never seen love like this. And the soldier's life was spared. It changed the entire thought process of the country. It changed everything, the way they looked at punishment. It changed everything. And because of the love that a woman had for her husband, the power of that love changed the whole dynamic of persecution and the entire weight of the political system in England. I share with you right now on Facebook and here at Yorktown, somebody has already done that for you and for me today. I don't care where you're at. I don't care where you're sitting. I don't care whatever is going on in your life. That story should relate to you because that's real. But the greater story is Jesus Christ hung on a cross for you and for me. And he took the weight and the brunt of everything that we have. And all you have to do now is, like you said this morning, he did it for everybody. All you got to do now is accept it. And when you do, listen to this part, just like that lady who showed love and changed England, we can change the world. It starts with two people, you and God. And then it grows to a church. Then it filters to schools. Then it goes out to the county. Then it goes to the state. Then it goes to bordering states. And the Lord knows it goes to Washington. Wouldn't it be amazing? Somebody from Washington comes through that door. What in the world is going on here? Let me show you the love of Jesus. Change the world. You know that. You and I have been talking. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts what can happen when you allow that to happen. Charity. Charity. Don't throw your nickel in there. He's asking you everything. And I'm not talking about filling up Salvation Army pot. It's showing the deepest love that Jesus has for you to someone else. It'll change the world. It'll change your relationships. It'll change your life. I had one lady tell me this last week, life is just not, everything's ugly. And there's so much truth to this. Everything is stinking ugly. I'm getting tired. I'm depressed. Everything is rotten. Every day I get up. And I don't want to go on. And I told her, take a deep breath. And I told her this story. And I told her the one that really matters. You are alive and well. And God has placed you here for a purpose. Go out and share that purpose. Share that love with Him. Would you stand with me?